Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and I have a question for you. Are Dungeon Masters a marginalized group? I think so. Let's talk it through together, okay? Let's find out the answer together. So, first of all, what are the check boxes for a marginalized group? First and foremost, marginalized groups are persecuted. Are Dungeon Masters persecuted? Woo! We got that checkbox covered. 1983 and 2023. Lots and lots of Dungeon Masters were persecuted. In 1983, religious zealots pulled Dungeons & Dragons book owners out and said, here's a physical pyre. Throw your physical books upon it, because D&D be gone. You're not allowed to own, read, do Dungeons & Dragons. Throw your books on the fire. All right? That was 2023. I'm sorry, that was 1983, called the Satanic Panic. In 2023, we did the whole thing over, right? It's called the Manic Panic. It happened in January of 2023, and anti-religious zealots said, D&D be gone! You are not allowed to read, own, do Dungeons & Dragons because Hasbro tried to change the OGL. You know what that means? I know you spent $700 on your D&D Beyond account and you have dozens of books there that you paid individually for, but throw your digital books on the digital fire. We demand that you delete your account. Don't unsubscribe, delete your account. We want you to lose every penny. You should have never bought it to begin with, because it's not okay to read, own, collect, do Dungeons & Dragons. Nothing changed but the date. So, are Dungeon Masters a marginalized group? Are they persecuted? Absolutely. Check, check. 1983, 2023. Dungeon Masters are objectively a persecuted group. That's not a debatable reality element. That's just the way it is, okay? So are Dungeon Masters persecuted? 100% yes, right? Okay. All right. And trust and believe, they'll be coming again. Right? I don't think it's going to take 40 years this time. All right. We had a 40-year gap, but actually, I think some Dungeon Masters had persecution even between then. Right. Yeah, we did. Let me stay focused here. All right. Marginalized groups often cannot speak their truth. Right. They can't talk about their experience because their experience is non-traditional. It is not accepted by, air quotes, normal people. And so let's talk about Dungeon Masters. Are you able to tell people about if you're out with people who bowl, people who watch professional football, people who own a pickup truck, can you tell them about your campaign? No. You know how many? I literally have Muggle subjects, right? I bicycle. I like to bicycle, right? And it's a safe topic that I can speak to the majority of people about, right? I cannot, meet a person and say, hey, and they're saying, what'd you do this weekend? I don't tell them I played Dungeons & Dragons because I know their eyes are going to roll. And when I start to talk for 15 minutes straight about Thracion, my custom campaign, and the elf rogue and and all the characters therein, there's not going to be, I can't speak my truth. I have to hide this part of my life from, air quotes, normal people, right? So many marginalized groups have to hide their activity. They have to talk about it within their own community. 100%. Dungeon Masters are absolutely checkbox, check, right? We do not have permission. Whereas if I talk about my bicycle, people will literally ask questions, right? If I talk about my campaign from the weekend, people are going to go get another drink, or they've got to go talk to somebody else, right? We have to hide our truth. We have to hide what we do. What we do it's not done in the open, right? We have to find our own space for it, right? So from a marginalized group, yes, check, absolutely, right? Marginalized groups often have a challenging time connecting, right? Recently saw a brilliant film, right? Was talking about and they were talking about one of the characters in the movie, and they said, and the line was, "Your father was a genius," right? And he was very lonely, right? And the reason why was because he was so smart, so much smarter than others, he had a hard time connecting, right? Like he couldn't use his full language, right? And I think dungeon masters are very much the same. You know, we have every single dungeon master has accepted the call of Gary Gygax's legacy. What is our purview? I think like the moment you put the dungeon master crown on, your purview is literally every single aspect of humanity. We have to learn biology. We have to learn botany. We have to learn psychology. We have to be able to, we have to be able to have a conversation with no one else talking in the room, right? With a 300-year-old female elf and a 40-year-old tiefling, male, right? And we have to be able, we literally, unlike anybody else in this world, are expected to routinely talk to ourselves and not find that weird or or disturbing in any way, right? We have to be able to pull out one of 1,000 non-player characters at a moment's notice, and that means understanding literally every corner of the world. And so many people are like, "Oh, I'm not interested in that." Gary said, "You don't have that luxury." Gary Gygax was like, "You don't have the luxury to not be interested in any topic or any person, because you are a world builder," right? Literally, the plumbing of the universe is your purview, right? Only God, who created this world, had more on their shoulders than you do, right? You don't have the luxury of turning your mind off. You don't have the luxury of not being interested in anything, because the world you craft has to be perfect. It has to be believable. It has to be engaging, right? And unlike any Hollywood writer, unlike any author, right? Unlike any other storyteller in the history of humanity, you have to build, 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 and be ready to destroy instantaneously. This last Saturday, I ran a fantastic session, right? You want to know what I did? I wrote 3 adventures. They were shredded within the first 15 minutes of the session, right? Gone, because one player had one brilliant idea, and I knew that player's 2 minutes of inspiration trumped my 4 days of preparation, right? We are, and this makes it hard for us to connect. We are manifold sentient, right? We have experiences. We live, every single one of us, right, has those characters that live inside of us, that we live inside of, right? We have multiple sets of emotion, sensation, memory, thought, right? We talk to people every single day that have only ever lived in one identity, right? And you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I'm going to tell it to you right now. Once a week, I deal with a person and I have to talk with them for like 20 straight minutes about the weather. And I feel so dejected and so lost and so marginalized. I'm like, why are you talking about the weather? I never talk about the weather because I live an epic life. Why do I live an epic life? Because when I was 12 years old, Gary Gygax said, "You're done. You're done as a first path human. Your life will be lived on 15 worlds with 1,000 mouths, 1,000 minds, and 1,000 hearts," right? And you will never, ever be able to discuss the weather again, right? because your life will be so filled with the things you have learned, the things you have felt, the sagacity you have been handed by players, right? That you will not give two rat tails what's happening in the sky above you. But the rest of the world can discuss the weather. You and I cannot discuss the weather. Do you understand what I'm saying? We cannot discuss the weather, right? It's like, you're like, what is wrong with your life that you care that precipitation falls, right? Like, I slay dragons. I learned how to do it when I was 12 virtually, and I do it for real now, right? I fail, I journey, I quest, and I never stop. I am manifold sentient. And it is hard to connect. It is hard to talk to people about the smallest, most ridiculous nonsense, right? Because their lives are so small compared to us. We are 100% Dungeon Masters are a marginalized group. We're persecuted. We have to hide who and what we are, right? And we struggle to connect because our experiences are so incredibly non-traditional and not accepted as normal. Well, yes, in my humble opinion, Dungeon Masters are a marginalized group. That's my humble opinion. What's your humble opinion? I'm very eager to hear it. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider like subscribing and have a fetch millennium.